This is BBC One in the southwest. Now the news at 10 o'clock with Michael Burke and Samantha Smith.
The government set for a battle of wills over taxes on fuel. The Chancellor's ruled out big cuts in duty. We can't afford them, he says. Severe flood warnings across Britain tonight, with more rain on the way. The controversial operation to separate the Siamese twins is still going on. And the Queen Mother's said to be chirpy tonight after breaking her collarbone.
Here in the southwest, Royal Navy helicopters braved storm force winds to rescue 10 men from a sinking Spanish trawler. And there's been a lucky escape for many homes threatened by rising water levels.
Good evening. The government's gearing up for a battle of wills with the fuel protesters. Today, the Chancellor, Gordon Brown, explicitly ruled out cuts in duty on the scale demanded. He said they were unaffordable and would lead to higher interest and mortgage rates. He's thought likely to offer some concessions in his so-called pre-budget report on Wednesday, freezing fuel duty, targeting help for hauliers and possibly people living in the country. But ministers say giving in on fuel taxes would mean penalising other groups like pensioners.
This government is deep in a war of words with the fuel protesters, to be won or lost this week in petrol stations across the country. If this one in Birmingham tonight is anything to go by, no queues, no panic buying, it's probably winning. Gordon Brown had come here to tell the CBI and the rest of us there'd be no big cut in fuel taxes in Wednesday's pre-budget statement. Low inflation was the prize, worth £1,000 a year to average mortgage payers, and he wasn't going to jeopardise that.
This would all be put at risk if unaffordable demands, such as for cuts in fuel duties of up to 26p, were met on Wednesday, with interest rates rising soon after. So while I do recognise, and the budget will respond to the genuine concerns of hauliers and motorists, I will do nothing that risks returning the economy to 1980s boom and bust.
But, argues the opposition, it's too late. The political damage is already done.
Taxpayers protest the fact that people are overtaxed and they feel it deeply, and that it's hurt the people who can least afford it. That feeling of bitterness against the government will endure.
Yet the government machine's hinting that it will only freeze, not cut fuel duty. That would provoke the tax rebels. But this is still a game of bluff and haggle, and so protest leaders meeting ministers in London today are keeping their powder dry.
As far as protester, I'm awaiting to see what comes out of the Chancellor's speech on Wednesday, and I hope that we continue dialogue.
But if it's confrontation instead, the police were backing ministers with the direst of warnings.
If we're not careful, somebody will suffer, and somebody will die. And so this is not a game, it is deadly serious. And I would want those who may intend to demonstrate, who may intend to use the same tactics that were used on the last occasion, just to reflect on that.
Now, nobody at the CBI's gala dinner is going to go home tonight and lose a lot of sleep about how much it costs to fill up the family car. But out there in a cold and suspicious country, Gordon Brown is taking one heck of a risk. How will it end? With more chaos and political damage, or authority restored? He doesn't know, nor do they, and nor, frankly, do I. Andrew Marr, BBC News, Birmingham.
New severe flood warnings, meaning an imminent danger to life and property, have been issued across England and Wales as river levels continue to rise. In the northeast of England, the levels on the rivers Aire, Ure and Nid have risen through the day, as they have on the Ouse and the Derwent, and won't peak until Thursday. The River Severn between Worcester and Gloucester has been on severe alert for several days, as has been the lower Dee in Wales. In the southeast, Uckfield has been flooded today for the second time.
Another race against time in York tonight. These troops are desperately trying to reinforce the city's flood defences, and this is why. Up in the Yorkshire Dales, fresh rain has produced new torrents of water, now joining rivers that are already dangerously swollen. Some frightened residents claim too little's been done to save their homes. They believe they've been sacrificed in favour of York.
Nobody's no idea how we feel. Nobody, and we'll get no help because York, they suffered us for York.
This was what parts of Wales looked like from the air. People in Bangor-on-Dee are being urged to leave their homes tonight. Elsewhere in Wales, roads have become rivers. Trying to travel along them can amount to dangerous driving. In Ruthin, there were futile attempts to hold back the water after the River Clwyd burst its banks.
It's just come like a tidal wave to everybody. People did what they could do, and that's it.
People had to be rescued by bulldozer, scooped up to the safety of dry land. In flooded Britain, the emergency services will try anything. These paramedics abandoned their ambulance in favour of a tractor. While lifeboat men used to working at sea have been brought in to carry out rescues inland. At Crawley in Sussex, it was the fire brigade who evacuated this nursing home for the elderly. More than 40 frail residents were saved from rapidly rising waters. These floodwaters struck in the early hours of this morning and with alarming speed. When the fire brigade got here, they had to use an inflatable pontoon bridge as well as rescue boats to evacuate the elderly residents. Many of them are in their 80s and 90s, and not surprisingly, they've been traumatised by their ordeal.
Startled, I would say, more than frightened, because he wondered what on earth was happening. We were all the same, wondering where was the water coming from? Why was our floors wet?
And in Essex, the fire brigade escorted a midwife to deliver a baby amid the floods. Pregnant mother Alison Hardwick had been stranded as she was about to give birth to Jamie.
But she couldn't get through. There's a fire engine down there saying, sorry, you can't get through there. And she says, well, I need to. I've got a lady who's in labour. And the fire engine says, fireman said, well, fine, hop in.
It is the very young and the very old alike who can be especially vulnerable in these floods. Ben Brown, BBC News.
Wales correspondent Wira Davis joins us now from Bangor on the River Dee. Well, Wira, the severe warning means imminent danger to life and property. How risky is it there?
Basically, Mike, it's a very bizarre and very risky situation here tonight. You can see behind me the swollen waters of the River Dee. They're actually well above the level of the village. There's just a sodden earth bank protecting the village over there. Police and emergency services have been out in the village, a village of about 1,000 people all day, urging them to leave their homes to go to higher ground. But quite bizarrely, we've got an incredible standoff tonight. There are people in the village pub at the end there, having a quiet drink, enjoying themselves, basically refusing to go. They're blaming the press, blaming everybody for scaremongering, saying they've seen all this before. Meanwhile, some 50 yards from the pub, the emergency centre, where the police were, the emergency services were, they've all fled. They've gone to higher ground. So dangerous, they say, is the risk of that bank bursting tonight. They won't let us get any closer, and they're saying that the whole village should be evacuated. The problem is, as I say, that nobody wants to leave. Mike.
Extraordinary situation, Wira. Thanks very much. Later tonight, surgeons in Manchester are expected to finish a long and difficult operation to separate the baby twins known as Jodie and Mary. The operation will inevitably kill the weaker twin, Mary, but it's hoped it'll give the chance of life to her stronger sister. The parents, who are devout Roman Catholics, lost a legal battle to prevent the operation.
There's still 2 hours to go before this complex operation is due to finish, according to the hospital's plan. Since their birth in August, the twins have been here in the special care baby unit at St Mary's. Today they were taken the short distance to the operating theatre to be separated, in the certain knowledge that Mary, the weaker twin, would die. Their parents, who opposed the operation, are said to be emotionally drained. This will have been an agonising day for all concerned.
This complex operation is expected to last approximately 15 hours and will involve around 10 to 20 members of staff. These include neonatal and paediatric surgeons, neurosurgeons, anaesthetist staff and nursing staff. At this time, our thoughts are obviously with the parents and the surgical team.
The twins' operation involves separating them where they're joined at the lower abdomen. The surgeons will also have to separate their spines, which are fused together.
Mary, the weaker twin, relies on her sister Jodie's heart and lungs to survive. During the operation, the blood supply from Jodie to Mary will have been cut off. Few doctors have experience of separating twins. Britain's leading surgeon, who's carried out 12 such operations at Great Ormond Street, says it's a delicate and unpredictable business.
Whatever investigations have been carried out prior to the operation, the surgeons have to be aware that they may come across something which they did not anticipate beforehand.
The hospital authorities say they won't be making a statement until tomorrow morning. If the operation has gone as planned, then Mary, the weaker twin, will have died, and her sister Jodie will be separated and facing an uncertain future. But even those who vehemently opposed this operation will be wishing her well. Neil Dixon, BBC News, at St Mary's Hospital in Manchester.
The Queen Mother has broken her collarbone. She fell in an upstairs room at her London home, Clarence House, on Friday, but the news was only released today. Prince Charles has visited her tonight, and she's said to be reasonably comfortable. But the accident comes only a few days after she stumbled while getting into her car.
At Clarence House tonight, the Queen Mother had her first visitor since her fall. Prince Charles called in to see her between engagements. He had already been in touch by phone and had said she was in remarkably good form. It's been a constant worry for all those close to the Queen Mother that she would fall and injure herself. Despite her 100 years, she remains fiercely independent and still carries out a number of engagements, like this one last week at Clarence House, accepting an honour from Canada.
It's wonderful. Well, I can't tell you how deeply touched I am to receive this honour.
It was on Friday afternoon, as she went into her sitting room, that she tripped over the carpet and fell. She was alone, and it was about a minute before she was found by her page. A nurse and a doctor were called. Though she'd broken her collarbone and was in considerable pain, it was decided that she did not need to go to hospital. Her shoulder has not been put in plaster, and today she was out of bed, sitting up with her left arm in a sling.
The biggest problem with this type of fracture is the pain, and that each time you take a breath, it moves the fracture and causing pain with breathing.
This latest fall happened 3 days after the Queen Mother tripped on her long evening gown after a dinner engagement. Eyewitnesses thought she'd hit her head as she fell into her car, but her staff insisted she wasn't hurt. Now, though, she's had to cancel all her engagements